Hello, good evening. I'm gonna make sure all of the live things were connected. So, what is up? Happy Tuesday. I hope that all of you who have caught up with the news that we are doing this have begun to expect that we will be on every Monday through Friday 7 o'clock p.m. So it is right around that time frame. And I would like to say good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Digital Discipleship Network. I am Dr. Courtney Brown, and my co-host and sister in the faith, Dominique Ukpabi. Whoop. Okay, Dominique Ukpabi teaches discipleship here with me every Monday through Friday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So right now, while you have a little minute, I'm doing some introductions, letting you know where things are. You can go ahead and grab your handy dandy notebook, your spiritual journal. If you do not have one, it doesn't matter. Just get this is a 100-page spiral notebook. Everything goes in here for me. If you've heard me talk about it, if you haven't heard me talk about it, there are a couple of videos. I'll give you the link in a little bit that talk about what I put in this, what is it, and why is this my brain. So grab your notebooks, and I will put a couple links up to what we got going on. The book that I am teaching, 30 Days to Understanding the Bible, is currently on Kindle for $2.99. So I personally prefer to have the physical book in my hands. I absolutely love this book. If you've ever seen me in person, I probably have one in my bag at all times and usually give it away within a couple of weeks of buying a new one. So I decided that it's probably best that I get a Kindle version as well. So it is on Kindle for $2.99 if you want to like hurry up and catch up with where we are. Last week, I talked through the 10 great doctrines of the Bible. And this week, officially, I am going to get into some of the meat and potatoes. If you do not have the book, that is okay. I am going to read through it. It is only 15 minutes a day. It is phenomenal. So today I will read through probably 1 and 2. We'll see how it feels. And what day is it? It's Tuesday. Thursday, we will talk about 3 and 4, see how those go, and then, just kind of go in a rotation. We're not locked into 30 days. It just depends on how, the flow is, how it goes. It is a book that you can do in 30 days on your own. If we don't do it in 30 days here, I'm running this show. So nobody's going to kick me out. JK. There you go. It's just me and Dominique. And so on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I am teaching the 30 Days to Understanding the Bible. It is a big picture view of understanding why the Bible is made the way that it is, and the themes that are in it, and how to read it and how to understand it. Being in the ministry and the church for over 38 years, I really never understood it. Well, it was probably like 35 by the time that I found it. And it made so much sense. So I have wanted to teach it for years and have resisted for a myriad of different reasons. But nevertheless, here we are. So you can always live stream Monday through Friday, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Let your people know. Also, if you miss it, you can go to tinyurl.com / oh, that is our Zoom link. JK. You can go to linktr, linktr.ee, and it's in the comments and all of the, wherever this video is posted, wherever you're watching this, there is probably a there's probably a link somewhere around there. I'm going to look on the Facebook right now. Yep. So over on Facebook, where we are, I do know that the link is in the description. And then if you are on the Instagram side, I'm going to grab that. If you're on the Instagram side, you can go to Digital Discipleship Network on Instagram, and it is also in our bio over there. There we go. So I put it over on the Instagram portion. So that kind of gives you the outline, resources, and videos that we have already done for this month. We will be repeating these two things along with on Friday, we talk about spiritual disciplines. Spiritual disciplines like hearing the voice of God for yourself, spiritual journaling and why it's important, praying. What does that mean? How do you do it? What is it doing? Are we manipulating God? Are we using him like a genie? What does all of that mean? And then also practical applications in everyday life. Discipleship is messy, okay? I don't know what you thought it was going to be a believer. Maybe you thought that like as soon as you were like, yep, I believe, and then boom, everything got perfect. It does not. It actually opens up a whole can of worms in a different way. Spiritual worms. How do you get rid of them? So what we do here is that we talk through whatever the content is for the day, and then at the end of the presentation for the day or the discussion for the day, we open up the Zoom room, and you can come in for Q&A. You can come in right now if you want to, but you're just going to be watching the same video that you'd be watching streaming. So around about 45 minutes to an hour, we will open up the Q&A. Sorry for you guys who were here last night. I had an incident with the boys. I was working in the background for Dominique, and y'all did not get to get in the Zoom room. We will work out all of those things, okay? So we will work out all of those things. We're just kind of in the beginning stages of access, and digitally, like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, they won't let you go live to an actual page for like 60 days. YouTube will, but it's a little restricted. And then Facebook and Instagram, we cannot go live in the digital discipleship space until 60 days. So we kind of have to like share permissions. So I got to, we just got to share all of that stuff and get it streamlined. So thank you for your patience. And we really want you to come in, be able to ask hard questions. If in case you are not able to get to the Zoom, or if by the time that you watch this, it is past 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can always message us. You can put your question in the comments. You can direct message us through either my Instagram page, through the Digital Discipleship Instagram page. Send your questions to Dominique. We will answer them. Okay, we will answer you. We will answer them. Questions that you have related to the topic. We are not here to argue about the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But we are here to answer legitimate questions about discipleship, about the word, about living this journey. And if you do have big questions, we're not saying we won't answer those, but we will send you resources for those. I turn off all the bells and whistles. We will send you resources for that type of stuff where you have big questions. So are y'all ready? I'm so excited for tonight. I love this book. We know that this generation has a form of godliness, but a lot of us know how to put on a good show. Lights, camera, action. We can turn on the camera. We can do the things that we've always known to do. But realistically, explaining what a relationship with God looks like or what that means for real life here in the earthly realm, we don't really know how to put that into words without utilizing what I call Christianese. Um, so what we don't want is those who we have contact with or we have access to be one of the ones that stand before Yahweh at the end of their life. And he say, "Depart from me. I never knew you, you worker of lawlessness, you worker of iniquity," because of what you were told or taught to do. We are definitely in the last days, whether you're a believer or you're a non-believer. There are people who are doomsday preppers who believe that the world is in its spiraling out days. All right, so there's a sign in the times, there is a feel in the earth, there's a feel in the universe, there's a feel in the spirit realm. Gross darkness is here. And so if we can do anything about it, we are. So we are working through the Bible. Dominique is working through Bible 101. We have an outline for that in all of the resources. You can go back and watch the videos, get caught up with where she is, or you can just hop right in. Whatever works best for you, because we will be doing that on repeat as well. We want you all to have the confidence that you know who your creator is and spiritually what that looks like for your life, for your family, for your purpose, and to find that and have peace here now, to have heaven on earth, to be able to access God now, that no matter what you're going through, you don't have to go through a pastor or a priest or a deacon or an elder or someone to get a word. You don't have to wait for the prophet to come anymore. That's not how any of this works. Otherwise, Yeshua wouldn't have had to die on the cross. It would have been useless if we still had to go through a third party. It's the reason why the veil ripped from top to bottom in completeness. I'm not going to preach right now, okay? But nevertheless, we are here because we want to help you with the foundational belief and the spiritual disciplines that you can grow on your own, no matter how long you've been here. And if you are an unbeliever, maybe giving you a little bit more information, an unbeliever, a truth seeker, or whatever, giving you some nuggets and some help on your journey, no matter what your decision is, not trying to persuade you either way, but it is literally giving you the tools to make the decisions for yourself, to live a life that you know and that you can answer for, and that if you are hurting, if there are things that you have experienced, knowing what to do with them, knowing how to sort through them, and knowing how to find the truth and live it out on your own. Not saying independently, not saying that you don't need people, because we need God and we need each other. So everybody got your journals out. If you don't have your journal out, grab a piece of paper, grab some scratch paper. You at least need to know where the resources are and how to get back to this, okay? I am going to start. So we will start at the beginning. Head on over to my Kindle. So like I said, we talked last week about the 10 great doctrines of the Bible. I like to start with that because it helps to gain the foundation of understanding what we're talking about, right? God, Yeshua, the Holy Spirit, sin, man, all of those things. What are these things that we are talking about? Where do we find it? And so I did not read through all of those. There are actually 10 breakdowns of that in here. And if we have time, we will. What I love most about this book, and this is what I put in my journal, is there are all of these really cool charts and visuals that Max puts in here. Max Anders. I'm going to share it. Okay, so this, like this chart right here, right? So it talks about the doctrine of the Bible, the Godhead, so Yahweh, Yeshua, the Ruach, spirit beings, man, sin, salvation, the church, and future things. Really cool. The book is amazing. There's so much that he breaks down in here. even as it pertains to, and it's so neutral, doctrinally neutral as far as like denominations and that kind of stuff. So that is in the videos from last week. I also read the introduction in another one of the videos last week. So today we are going to start with the story of the Old Testament. And I'm going to read to you. And so if you are driving, if you are out and about, if you are on Facebook, if you are on Instagram, I am going to read it. So you can sit back and relax. You can read along with me if you do have the book yourself. But we are going to go through it and have a great time. Okay. So we are on chapter 1, the structure of the Bible. So in unit 1 is the story of the Old Testament. Section 1 is the story of the Old Testament. Chapter 1 is talking about the structure of the Bible. Charles Steinmetz was an electrical engineer of towering intellect. After he retired, he was asked by a major appliance manufacturer to locate a malfunction in their electrical equipment. None of the manufacturer's experts had been able to locate the problem. Steinmetz spent some time walking around and testing the various parts of the machine complex. Finally, he took out of his pocket a piece of chalk and marked an X on a particular part of one machine. The manufacturer's people disassembled the machine, discovering to their amazement that the defect lay precisely where Steinmetz's chalk mark was located. Some days later, the manufacturer received a bill from Steinmetz for $10,000. Business owners, listen. They protested the amount and asked him to itemize it. He sent back an itemized bill, making one chalk mark, $1. Knowing where to place it, $9,999. If you know where the chalk marks go, the most overwhelming tasks are easily solved. If you don't, even simple tasks can be impossible. Learning about the Bible can be much the same. If you don't know much about it, it can be like trying to cross the Sahara Desert blindfolded. Yet, if you learn where a few of the major chalk marks go, the Bible will unfold itself to you, allowing you to begin to master it. My own experience bears this out. Many years ago, I decided I was going to master the Bible, like most of us probably have. I was going to begin with Genesis and read through Revelation, and I wasn't going to put it down until I understood it. I soon became hopelessly entangled in a jungle of fantastic stories. Unpronounceable names, broken plots, unanswered questions, and endless genealogies. I stubbed my toe on Leviticus, sprained my ankle on Job, hit my head on Ecclesiastes, and fell headlong into the mud on Habakkuk. I was defeated. I threw my Bible down, concluding that the Bible was a series of unrelated stories put together in random order. Then one day I discovered a key. With this key, the fog that enshrouded my understanding of the Bible began to lift. Not that things came into sharp focus, but at least I began to see shapes on the horizon. The key, learning the structure of the Bible. If you want to learn architecture, you must first learn how buildings are put together. If you want to learn sailing, you must first learn how ships are put together. And if you want to learn to understand the Bible, you must first learn how the Bible is put together. The Old and New Testaments. The Bible has two major divisions, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Some people call it the Old Covenant and the New Covenant, just depending on where you are. The Old Testament begins with creation and tells the story of the Jewish people up to the time of the Messiah. It is made up of 39 individual books. The book of Genesis, the book of Exodus, etc., written by 28 different authors and spans a period of over 2,000 years. The New Testament or New Covenant is the record of the birth of Yeshua, his life and ministry, and the ministry of his disciples, which was carried on after Yeshua was crucified. The New Covenant is composed of 27 books written by 9 different authors and covers a time period of less than 100 years. The total number of books in the entire Bible is 66. So this thing goes through quite a bit of like self-tests at the end of it. I really, really, really strongly suggest that you guys get the actual book, whether you go over to Kindle now and I don't have like an Amazon link or anything like that. I'm just saying it helps with this. So the self-test talks about what you can learn tomorrow is built on what you can learn today. As you work through these chapters, you will be asked to fill in many blanks. This is not by accident or whim. Repetition is the key to mental ownership. I will screen share these in a few minutes. If you are on your phone or your laptop, you will be able to go back through the video and you can screenshot them. They do stay up on Facebook, but they're also on the links in our link tree. Okay. Each time you review this information, electrical impulses travel through the brain, creating neurological pathways for memory. Some nerdy for your brain. As you complete these exercises, you will construct superhighways of memory in your brain and begin to own this information on a level that would be impossible any other way. In addition, what you can learn today is built on what you learned yesterday, and what you can learn tomorrow is built on what you learn today. So, by being faithful to complete the review exercises and self-tests, you are not only gaining mastery of important information today, but you are also creating a powerful foundation of knowledge that will enable multiplied learning tomorrow. So, with a ready mind and expectant heart, how many books did I just say are in the Old Testament? And how many books are in the New Testament? And how many books are in the Bible as a whole? So the Old Testament or Old Covenant is 39 books. The New Testament or New Covenant is 27, and there are 66 altogether. I am not going to read through all of the Old Testament and New Testament books. That is very much public knowledge and is in this book as well. But there are a couple of links to some really cool songs. Y'all know I'm a teacher. If you don't know, I am a teacher in real life. And there are some really cool songs out there that help you to memorize them if memorizing them is something that you want to do. Here's the key. So we're talking about Old Testament. Now we're moving into Old Testament. Here's the key to understanding the Old Testament. Of the 39 books in the Old Testament, there are 3 different kinds of books. And so now this begins to compartmentalize your brain so that you can section them off, and it does help you to memorize them a little better. So there are historical books, poetical books, and prophetical books. And the type of information that you would expect to be in each one of those is corresponding, right? So what kind of information would you expect to find in historical books? It's history. Poetical books, it's poetry, and prophetical books is prophecy. If you know what kind of book you are reading, then you will know what kind of information to expect, and you can more easily follow the logical flow of the Old Testament. Also, understanding, this is not in the book, this is off to the side, that we are reading a translation of an ancient culture. Okay. If you can, really doing deep dives once you get into studying the Bible is getting into studying the culture at the time. And we'll get into that, but understanding some of these things that we see and read does not translate. One of the most prevalent examples is slavery, right? Especially if you are in America, it's just not a concept that translates because of the type of slavery that we had in America through the transatlantic slave trade. Not the same, completely different concept. Okay, So really, as you read through these, it's not only understanding the translation, but also understanding that it is an ancient culture. Okay. So poetry and the way that they write, like, for example, I just recently learned that the angels or the spirit beings that surround the throne, they don't actually say holy, holy, holy like that in brackets every time, right? Repeat. It is the Hebrew way of explaining, like emphasizing something that was said. Learned that in seminary. So, all right. The Old Testament. The first 7 books are history: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua. That's it. Okay. Because 7 is weird, because most people say like the first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Yeah. Okay. It's fine. Don't worry about me. I remember stuff. So the next 5 books are poetry. And then the next 17 books are prophecy. So those first 7 books, once you get to Joshua, interesting. Sorry, my like analysis brain is kicking in. Huh. Okay. This is real time, y'all. To pray for me. Okay, so the last 17 books of the Old Covenant are of prophecy. Okay. So in review, there are history, poetry, and prophecy. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I feel like that did not do it for me. Y'all, if I could read, who's telling me? Anybody telling me? First 17. It's not that's what my brain was like, wait, something's not, the math is not mathing. The first 17, it goes 17, 5, 17. I told y'all, pray for me. Saints ain't praying hard enough. 17, the first 17 books of the Bible are history. And that's why I was like, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. Ruth is not a poetry book, y'all. Anyway, it's not. So don't laugh. Okay. So the first 17 books are historical. The next 5 are poetry, and the last 17 are prophecy. Okay. Okay. If you want to read the story of the Hebrew nation in the Old Covenant, you must read the first 17 books. Y'all, this made so much sense to me after a while, because I listened to the audio Bible, and I would be like, is this not the same story? I've already heard this story. Why are they telling this story again? And who's telling this? If you want to read the poetry of Israel, you must read the next 5 books of the Old Covenant. And if you want to read about the prophecy of Israel, you must read the final 17 books. And this is somewhat oversimplified, because there is some poetry in the history books, just like with us, and there is some history in the prophecy books, and so on. So the point is that each of the books fits into a primary category. If you keep this structure in mind, the Old Covenant will begin to take shape. My mistake was in assuming that the whole Old Covenant was one long, unbroken story, which, put in the comments wherever you are, did you also early on think the same thing? That you could read it from Genesis to Revelation and it was one streamlined story? Ha, joke's on you. Okay. And that the history would flow evenly and consistently out of one book into the next until they were all finished. Now I know the storyline is contained in the first 17 books. Of the 17 historical books, 11 are primary historical books and 6 are secondary historical books. Remember I said the stories repeat themselves? The history of Israel is advanced in the 11 primary books and repeated or amplified in the 6 secondary books. The poetical and prophetical books were written during the time period that is constructed in the first 17 books. So let's take a look at the historical timeline of the Old Testament in chart form. I'm going to share it if I can. Let's see if I can make this do something on here. All right. So this is the timeline of the Old Testament. I love this for nerdy brains and for visual learners. This really helps you to put it in perspective. A lot of us have probably heard that Job is the oldest book, the oldest written book in the Bible. And oh, yes, I can see it, that it's coming through on the other side as well. Praise the Lord. So if we look over here, Job is a book of, it is a poetic book. And poetic does not imply to be nice and kind and gentle. The book of Job is wild, wildly outlandish. And my favorite scripture out of Job is where God literally tells Job to brace himself like a man. Read it, you might like it. And so it shows you how the history books, so we see the primary 11 books down here from Genesis through Nehemiah, okay? And then we see where the secondary historical books are kind of inserted along that timeline. And then on top of that, they insert the books of poetry where they were written as well. Oh, it starts to make so much sense, you all, because once you get to understanding like when and where the Psalms were written, right? So we know, you may or may not know, right? I don't like to assume. You may or may not know that King David, one of the kings of Israel, wrote most of the Psalms. Now, he didn't write all of them, but he wrote most of the Psalms. And so if you look on the timeline, it makes sense because King David ruled in the time of Samuel the prophet, and Chronicles was written along that. So we see how it aligns along this timeline, okay? Also, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon, which are books written by King Solomon, who is King David's son, is next on the timeline, and it makes sense, right? So just seeing this all together starts to allow you to see how all of it really fits and where it fits along the timeline. And then once we get into prophecy, Second Kings, Yahweh had something to say right along that Second Kings timeline, y'all. You see that? And it's understanding who God was talking to when these books were divinely inspired or written. And so knowing that Hosea and Amos was written to Israel or Yasharel, and Habakkuk, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Joel, Micah, Zephaniah, and Lamentations was written to Judah or Yehuda, and Jonah and Nahum was written to Assyria, and Obadiah was written to Edom. So hopefully this is starting to make a little bit of sense to you along the timeline, how everything was written. And then once you begin to dig into the content, it will start to make a little bit more sense. And you don't have to just go straight through book by book. You can read them kind of simultaneously. So if you want to go through this, here's a recommendation of mine, because like I said, we will do this rotation about every 30 days. And what that will do is, between you and the reading and your studying and your spiritual journal, you will begin to sit and prayerfully start to have things revealed to you, your own revelation. You're not eating regurgitated word. It is you and Yahweh sitting together, understanding. And there are now spiritual revelations coming to you about your life and about who Yahweh is in the big picture, but also who Yahweh is to you. It's so beautiful when it starts happening. And so prayerfully, this starts to catapult you into the next level. No matter where you are in your spiritual journey, you're never deep enough, right? I always tell people, the closer you get, the further you realize you are, right? It is the prophet Isaiah standing before the throne and going, woe is me, I am a man of unclean lips. I'm undone, right? I am nothing in this space, and realizing that not only is he unclean, but he stands before an unclean people, and it's a mess, right? Like, I'm a mess, you're a mess. And this is the prophet Isaiah. Okay. So prayerfully, as you get into this, as we start to go through the rotations, go through the book the first time, just purely, but also while we're going through it, you can read the book. And I don't mean this book, I mean the book, the library, the 66 books. You can actually go through it in 30 days. I know, mind blowing. Hey, look, it's December. If you've planned all year to go through the Bible and you haven't done it yet, procrastinators unite. You have 30 days to get through this. And let me tell you how you can do it. You have 4 30-minute blocks a day. Okay. I know you do. Look at your screen time. I dare you to take a screenshot and share it with me. I bet you won't. Look at your screen time. 30 minutes that you are scrolling through your phone 4 times a day. I bet it's there. I bet it's there. I bet you are just mindlessly doing something for 30-minute blocks a day. That is 2 hours a day that you can turn on the word. Now, 2 hours a day seems crazy when you're like, I don't want to do it all at once. But if you break it up into 4 30-minute blocks a day, it takes approximately 72 hours to go through the whole Bible on audiobook. So find your favorite translation. You can go on YouTube, you can go through the Bible app. But if you make the time, you can actually go through the Bible as you go through this book. I promise you, you won't regret it. But that screen time, every time your phone pops up and be like, here's your weekly screen time report, tell me you don't feel guilty about how much time is on there. Tell me you don't. Okay, but you can take off this time, because this time is spent learning about the word. Okay, so this hour with me, you can cancel that off your screen time average, and it'll take 5 hours off. Okay, you're welcome. Nevertheless, back to the book. Okay, so as you can see, Job was written during the time period of the book of Genesis, and Psalms during the time of 2 Samuel, while Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon were written during the time of 1 Kings, and so on. To use an analogy, we constructed a similar chart for U.S. history. Imagine that you read an American history book for the main storyline. The history book would give you the major periods in U.S. history. Some of these periods might be associated with a major poet or writer and a major philosopher. The poets would correspond to the poets of Israel, and the philosophers would correspond to the biblical prophets, right? So I love this part. Let me not jack it up. There we go. Okay. I love this part. If I can get to it. There we go. Because this helped me understand a lot. I was like, wait a minute now. Side note, if you've ever seen like a timeline of the world and like all of the parallel timelines across like different countries and like major world events, look it up. It will blow your mind. So this just kind of shows you how they broke it down, all right? if you even know these people. Jonathan Edwards, I don't know who that is. Thomas Paine, a little bit. Henry Longfellow, Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now it's a little, coming along the line, Robert Frost. So those are poets and writers, and then the corresponding historical periods that they wrote in, and then also the great philosophers of that time. So it's a little bit better philosophy-wise, but Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Henry David Thoreau, Abraham Lincoln, Mark Twain, and William Jennings Bryan. Martin Luther King. Okay. And I don't feel bad about it. Okay, so don't try to shame me about not knowing the timeline of U.S. history. Oh, it's tragic. Okay. Okay, so moving on into the New Testament. So of the 27 books in the New Testament, there are also 3 different kinds of books: historical books, Pauline epistles, and general epistles. The historical books are the 4 Gospels and the Acts of the Apostles. It's also known as Acts. The epistles are letters written to various individuals and church congregations. The Pauline epistles are letters written by the Apostle Paul. The general epistles are letters written to individuals and congregations by a number of different people, hence the rather generic name general epistles. And the primary content in all of the epistles is instruction on Christian doctrine and lifestyle. Stop sharing this. So it is broken down very similarly to the Old Testament. So history, instruction, and more instruction. In the New Testament, the first 5 books are history books, next 13 are from Paul, and the last 9 are from the other disciples, apostles, and things of that nature. Okay? One thing to note about the Pauline epistles. The Pauline epistles specifically are written to the churches of that location. Okay? I don't know if he talks about this, but I want to. Okay. Let's talk about references. Okay. So in the New Testament or the New Covenant, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts. Okay. Those are about what happened in the ministry of Yeshua, and then what did his disciples do immediately after. Okay. Next comes the Pauline epistles, and they are Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, and 1st Thessalonians. Probably 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Okay. Those are locations. Those names: Romans to Rome, Corinthians, Corinth, Galatia, Ephesia, Philippi, Colossae, Thessaloniki, all of those crazy Greek words, okay? And then 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon, those are from Paul to his spiritual sons or people in the faith, okay? If you want to read the story of Yeshua and the church he established, you must read the first 5 books. And those are the historical framework for the entire rest of the New Covenant. If you want to read the Apostle Paul's instruction to the churches and individuals, you read the next 13 books. And if you want to read the instruction to churches and individuals by men like the apostles Peter and John, then you read the final 9 books of the New Testament. Now, this is going to go into reference. To find something in the Bible, most of us know how to use standard reference, that if we say Genesis 1:1, we are talking about the book, the chapter, and the verse, right? So the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. Okay. So we can either memorize them, like I said, go find a little song, memorize them, and you flip through it like a cool person. Or you can go, there's always a table of contents. And so, you will know that there are the 3 types of books in the Old Covenant, the 3 types of books in the New Covenant, and how many are in each section. If you want to memorize them, it helps you to break them down. And you keep just building on that. There is no substitute for reading the whole book for yourself. That's why I said while we go through this, you can go through this book itself one full time, or you can listen to the audiobook on rotation as we go through it all the time. I know people who listen to the Bible in their sleep, and they listen to the Bible takes about a week to 10 days, depending on how long you sleep at night. If you put the scriptures on when you're going to sleep and you're getting 7-8 hours of sleep, you're going to get 7 or 8 hours of scripture in your sleep. I'm not going to get into the psychology of that right now, but you might want to try that as well. Pending you don't have any small children in the house that you have to be awake for. Yeah. Partition your mind. So these are at the end of this, each of these like sections, he does have these little kind of like self-tests, and I'll show it here. So I did say that I would show you all these. It's a little funky on the Kindle, but you can write them down this way for yourself. So I told you that I would share it. So, this is just a self-test at the end of each section. And so it says how many books are in the Old Testament, how many books are in the New Testament, how many books are in the whole Bible. And it does that for the Old and the New. Oh, I love this part. He has these summaries at the end of the self-tests that you probably like sped through when you were reading it. But when he breaks it down, it helps you to begin to develop the language to explain what each one of them is. So like this, it says the Old Testament or the Old Covenant is the story of God or Yahweh and the Hebrew people, their poets and prophets. Y'all, when I started reading this, it's like putting the pieces of a puzzle together because it's like this stuff, but when you actually have the language to say that out of your mouth. The Old Testament or the Old Covenant or the First Covenant, depending on, the language that you want to use. I feel like Old Testament is kind of disrespectful sometimes, okay? But the Old Covenant or the First Covenant is the story of Yahweh, right? And the Hebrew people, their poets and prophets. It is understanding that it's not an instruction manual, although it does have divine instructions. It is a story to let you know who Yahweh is, who the Hebrew people are, and why. The why is the most important part to get to, okay? Moving to the next page over here on the self-test, it breaks down the history books, the poetry books, prophetic books. There are how many historical? 17, Courtney. There's 17. 5 poetical books and 17 prophetical books. The New Covenant or the Second Covenant or Renewed Covenant is the story of Yeshua of Nazareth, the church he founded, and its growth under the leadership of his apostles after his death and resurrection. And then it goes through the same thing, the history books, the Pauline epistles, and the general epistles. Okay. And so this gives you a basis or a framework to start from. And it says, congratulations, you're off to a fine start. As we move from the general to the specific, you can build your knowledge of the Bible like rows of bricks on a house. In 29 more days, your house will be finished. This takes me to this very interesting thing that I tell people a lot in a story that I read, that if you continue to give all of your bricks away or all of your resources away, and you do not use it to build your own foundation and your own house first, soon you will have given all of your bricks away. They will have a house and you will be homeless. So I encourage you to take the time now to build your foundational understanding, to sit down and do this, to write it, to begin to understand it, because you will not regret it. It does not matter if you are a believer or an unbeliever. This will help you along your journey of understanding. As they say in Proverbs, in all you're getting, get understanding. If you're an unbeliever, can you explain why? Do you know why? Or do you just like to say, I just don't believe in that? And there's all types of different reasons why I don't believe in it. And X, Y, and Z. Have you done the research? Do you have an understanding? And I will tell you, I am currently in a world religions class right now, studying all the different world religions. I also have on our link a resource to this page called The Truth Unedited. This young man has done a phenomenal job of comparing all of the world religions and all of the things that we typically talk about that are similar, that are different, and what does all of that mean? And so if you just go onto YouTube and you search in search box, The Truth Unedited, he has all of the stuff broken down in playlists. I also have a couple of those playlists in our link, okay? So I do like to talk, and I really enjoy this book. So that will be all that we'll be able to get to for this evening. If you would like to come in for questions and answers, if you would like to talk a little bit further or share some things just regarding this book or Bible study last night, you can come on over. It is tinyurl.com/digital disciple. Digital disciple. That will bring you into the Zoom room. I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to turn the live off, okay? Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this time. I thank you for you and this divine appointment. I thank you that you look over the expanse of time, you look over eternity, and you saw it fit for each one of us to be here in this time with a very specific purpose. And those that are under the sound of my voice that are drawn to this space, and Dominique and I and the Digital Discipleship Network, what you have called us to do, this impression you have placed on our heart for a very long time now, I ask that your kingdom come and your will be done. I ask that as we start to seek deeper revelations of your kingdom, of your way, of your truth, and of the life that we are created to live, that your spirit would rest on us, that you would bring understanding, you would bring divine revelation, you would help solidify our foundations, that your spirit would sit in the spaces and places that we have great questions, that you are not afraid of our big questions, you are not afraid of our big emotions, and that this understanding would draw us closer to you. I thank you for each and every person who is watching this video or who will watch this at a later time. I pray that you would bless them and you would keep them. I pray that you would give them peace, and that as they rest, your Holy Spirit would begin to speak the divine mysteries and revelations that you would have for their life. And it is in your precious Son, Yeshua HaMashiach's name, we do pray. Amen. All right, y'all. So you can come on over. I promise I'll let y'all in tonight. I didn't mean to keep y'all locked out last night if you were trying to get in over here. Bye.